Hello everyone, welcome to another class. In this lesson, we're going to take a good look at the main features and functionalities of DBR-Dash. Well, when you initially open DBR-Dash for the very first time, it already comes pre-equipped with a comprehensive dashboard designed to proactively alert you about absolutely anything that might potentially be a critical or significant issue, ensuring you are always informed and prepared. So it will be highlighting these issues with colors red, yellow, and green. Everything is fine, okay? So you have these top-level menus located here, which are in fact rarely utilized. I will now proceed to show you a few of them right here, specifically under the About section. If you want to update to the latest version of DBA Dash, just click here on Upgrade, all right? Here in the Options section, for example, if you want to change the server names, so please notice this important detail. Up here at the very top, it generally shows comprehensive information related to all of your SQL instances, providing a broad overview. Up here, this top part right here, and at the bottom, it highlights each of the instances here with information related to each of the SQL servers. Here are the two that I set up for data collection, using that other software we saw where we configured the data collection, which is this one here. With this software here, every time you want to add a new server, you'll have to come here to source and you'll need to connect a new SQL server here by name. Check this option here, connect. And you'll have to click ADD here for this server, and you'll probably need to stop the DBA Dash service, stop it, and then start it again so it can also begin collecting information from that server, right? And it keeps this information inside the DBA Dash database. We saw that it stays on one of the servers you specified here in the destination. This is where it created its database Dash, which it is populating here with information coming from various servers, right? It does this automatically and seamlessly, feeding this crucial and sensitive data through the designated user account that is specifically configured on each and every one of these individual servers. This particular user account right here, who possesses comprehensive administrative privileges and full control, right? Which is the same user that's running in the DBA Dash service. It's the same user that's here in the DBA Dash service, which keeps running all the time. So every minute it captures CPU data from the server, and every hour it checks. On a SQL instance, if a new database is brought up, if a new database is created, here, look, it's the same user. But this user here is the local machine's admin user that we created, which is also the same user that's inside SQL server with sysadmin privileges. So that's what we did last year, and now here it starts collecting this data, right? Here, in options, if I want, for example, to change the name of these servers, if I want to give it a name, a nickname, I can come here and set a nickname here. Here, look, display name, I can change the nickname, put 1 here, then click outside. Now it has already changed it to 1. Okay, it's just a nickname. All right, but I'll just leave it as the default. Just double click, click outside, and it will update automatically, right? Data retention, data retention. Interesting, because by default, it already has the number of days it retains the data in the database from the DB Dash repository. So it already has a default for each type of information. It already has a customized number of days it will keep the information. If it's a very large number of days, which you think isn't worth it because the database will remain, it will keep growing, it will get big. The DBA Dash database, you can change each of these parameters. And here's the current day. So it has already been stored for a period of approximately 12 days, right? Now, from this parameter within DB Dash, and it will store a maximum of 730 days before recycling, before deleting the data. You just need to click here and decrease it. I want 120 days done, right? Whenever there is an underline, you can click and change some information. Well, here in the repository settings section, you can easily change any of these important parameters in order to trigger an alert with a much more intense and noticeable color, providing a clearer visual indication. There will be several places where the tool brings up this issue, both here in a general way and within each of the elements that will be monitored, we can make changes. The threshold, the value at which it triggers an alert, for example, a backup that hasn't been performed for more than X days, there is a general parameter set here, but I can adjust the specific one, I can inherit from the general setting, or I can change the specific one. So for example, here's the case. Let's take the example here. Look, it will certainly trigger an important alert. It will generate comprehensive and detailed information here inside DBA- when there are specific procedures that take more than 1 full second to complete. To effectively change this setting, I simply double click and I only want it to trigger an alert when it's 2 complete seconds, right? A crucial detail in this particular and specific case. There will be a designated place here where we can clearly see the slowest and most time-consuming queries that are currently running and impacting performance. With this 1 second parameter, which will be here, slow queries, right? If nothing is showing up for you, at first it might take a while to load. That's normal, okay? But if after some time nothing appears, check your configuration here in the source, right? See if this parameter here is set to 1000 slow query threshold, if it's set to 1000 or to -1. If it's set to -1, right? So with -1, it won't collect this information. Then you need to come here and set it to 1000 or whatever value you think should be collected for slow queries, okay? So you would have to change it here to 1000, right? Whenever that's the case, it doesn't collect data. For example, here, slow query, which is reaching a certain amount of memory. It won't collect this information. If you, for example, if here it says plan collection, if it does, it's not collecting the query plan activity. It won't show up on the dashboard, all right? Then you enter a value here and ask it to save. It will ask you to restart the service. So you would have to come here, stop the service, and restart it again, okay? So it can start collecting and show up here after a while, right? Remember that there are metrics collected every hour and others collected every minute, okay? All right, so let's go. When you open up let me continue here. There's some more information that's interesting. This set auto refresh here, see with the name. So you can change it here so that it refreshes automatically so you don't have to keep clicking here. See, is it set to refresh? By default, you have to keep clicking here to refresh. You can change this parameter so it refreshes automatically every minute, for example. Okay, some people don't like it. This white screen, because it tires your eyes. So if you want, just go to themes and switch to dark mode. This is easier on the eyes, right? So this is very personal, but generally, if you spend the whole day looking at this white screen, switching will definitely be easier on your eyes. This is very typical for people who code. Well, so in this first dashboard here, it alerts you to the things that are critical. If you check inside each server, it will have its own dashboard. Also check here, look, but this is related to this specific server. So notice here that this server has a full backup and there's something critical, which is not what you see here. It's a server that's missing a full backup. So when you click here, look, it shows you which server it is down here, which is the one I'm currently on. Even the one that's missing a full backup, if I click on the link itself, it will already bring up information about the backups in general. Right? So here in this tab, it shows information about the backups in general for that machine that's having issues. Okay, so here it's showing machine 6. There are 6 databases that don't have backups. If you click on the link, it will display the databases down here. See? These are critical databases that don't have backups. There are 7 here. It's showing 6 here because it's not counting TempDB, because you don't need to back up TempDB. That's why it's not even marking it as critical. Here in red, it's marking it as critical. You need to back it up, and there hasn't been any kind of backup done. Notice that it shows the server name, the database name, and when that database was created. And the recovery model of that database, whether it's full or simple. Remember, with full, you have to back up the log. With simple, you don't need to back up the log, and you can't even back up the log. Those are the lessons from SQL Server where we go over all these details. Okay? If you're not familiar with all the details of SQL Server, I suggest you take a SQL Server course to really get to know its features in depth. This DBA tool is specifically for SQL Server. So let's go back here to the general overview. The general overview, as I mentioned, covers all the machines. That's why down here you see all the machines, all the servers. If I click here on 2, it will show which machines have a critical full backup status. There's no full backup. If I click here on view, it will clearly show me all the detailed information for that specific machine that currently has a critical full backup issue. And which databases are they? Here on the arrow, I can always go back to the previous screen, the home screen. I go back to the first screen, right? Well, so this is something that you really need to diligently keep a close eye on to fully understand what exactly is happening. And then you can either continue clicking right here. It will keep filtering down here, okay? Or you can already go back, or you can stay directly here or on the server. Here you can't, it doesn't provide a link here. But here there is already a link. Another interesting piece of information, it's in red. Also, the last good check DB, that is the dbcc check DB command to check the integrity of the databases. It's saying here, it's in red. So it's saying down here that no integrity check has ever been performed on the databases of these 2 servers. If you click here on server, it will show you information about the last integrity check that was performed on the databases using the dbcc check DB command. But it already mentioned that it was never done. So it puts this date here, 1900, just to have a date because no check has ever been performed. Of the integrity of these databases, you can either come down here or you could click here, you click on 2, it will show which machines they are. If there were 50 machines, it would show the machines where it was never done. No DBCC check has ever been done, or the last time it was done might have been so long ago that it could also trigger an alert. So here, look, if you click, it already brings up the information. Up here, do you see this critical warning? It already marks it as a critical warning. If you click here on OK, it also brings you information in green if an integrity check has already been performed on the databases. You can always generate this table in Excel and send it to someone. Here you can refresh this information. And here you usually have threshold settings, so you can change parameters for that alert, a specific parameter. Both here and sometimes here on the side. Configure. So here it is inheriting from that summary, from those general metrics. But we can choose not to inherit. I don't want to inherit. I want to activate it, and I want it to trigger a critical alert here when more than a certain number of hours have passed without doing a DBCC check DB. So if more than 48 hours have passed and there hasn't been any DBCC check DB executed, I already want it to alert me, okay? Or a warning so it shows up in yellow, right? If it goes over a certain number of hours and here I do an update and it instantly refreshes this information, it fetches the information from the DB- repository database and immediately updates it here in DBA-. Okay. Let's go then. Basically, this middle section here, that's what the general dashboard is for, which applies to all servers, right? You also have alerts here. What are alerts? Alerts are those notifications we configure in SQL Server. For example, these alerts here, which we can set up for when there's a problem. On the disk, a fatal error on the server, SQL itself will start alerting you. If you create these alerts, then this alert will show up here, indicating which alert it is and which server. How many times has that alert already occurred? Well, it's showing up here because I don't have any alerts yet that have indicated a problem on my machine or in any database.